The Adventurer's Log 1.1130.20. Hi, I'm Bobby, I'm your host, and today we're going to be talking about the 2012 Disney film John Carter. But before we get to that, let's get into this day in tech history. So our first story comes from November 30th, 1959. IBM delivers the first two IBM 7090 mainframe computers. One of the first commercially produced fully transistorized computers. There it is. The 7090 and the later 7094 were notable for being used by NASA to control the Mercury and Gemini space flights, along with many other significant scientific and government applications in the 1960s. Some 7090s were even used through the 1970s and the 1980s. All right, let's get into our second story. On November 30th, 2009, book retailer Barnes & Noble releases their first Nook e-reader to compete with the highly successful Amazon Kindle released 2 years earlier. One of the unique things about the Nook e-reader is that the screen is not a full, screen per se. It's not a glass screen. It's more of a I don't know. You could use it in sunlight with no issue whatsoever, as opposed to tablets, the Amazon Kindle, iPhones, Androids, all of that. You couldn't use all those in direct sunlight. The Kindle you could. Another unique thing about it was that you could actually trade books you've purchased with someone else. So if you read a book, went, "That's fantastic. Hey, Billy, you should read this book." And Billy goes, "Well, I just finished a book that you should read. Let's trade." And you could trade. And so you could give a book to Billy, and Billy could give you a book. But you couldn't trade beyond what was traded to you. So that's one way they got around. I don't want to say got around. That's one way they used copyrights and all of that to their advantage. But as far as I know, that was the very first book-oriented device that you could actually share books with, with each other with. So it's pretty neat. All right. We're going to get into John Carter in just a second. So this last week, because of Thanksgiving and Black Friday and all of that, and family stuff, I was not able to make my review films for Star Trek Discovery last Thursday, Thanksgiving, and The Mandalorian on Friday, Black Friday. So this next Thursday and next Friday, I will actually do 2 reviews, one back-to-back for Discovery, and then one back-to-back for Mandalorian. So you will get them, I promise. All right. So let's get into our topic of the day. So we're going to be talking about Disney's John Carter, the 2012 PG-13 film, which is based on the book written by the author Edgar Rice Burroughs. He is also well known for writing Tarzan. So yeah. So here is a simple synopsis of the film. Civil War vet John Carter is transplanted to Mars, where he discovers a lush, wildly diverse planet whose main inhabitants are 12-foot tall green barbarians. Finding himself a prisoner of these creatures, he escapes, only to encounter Dejah Thoris, Princess of Helium, who is in desperate need of a savior. I will say, I'm not the biggest fan of flashback films. There's benefits to it. That way you can give context, but keep the story going. For me, if you're gonna go ahead and give me the context, just give it to me up front. Don't have to go back and retell what happened at this point, when you could just tell me from the beginning to this point. There's not a lot of films out there that I like that have done flashback films. This is one of the few. So, because it is so well done, that it's not this unknown narrator telling you what's going on through 90% of the film, and then last 10%, oh, here's the main character. So this is done differently, and I respect that, and I appreciate that. So the critics trashed this film, but it has definitely earned a cult following and is considered by many a hugely underrated film. I will get to the main reason why it was such a flop in a moment. It is very much of how do I put this? It is very much of the steampunk-ish, big part of that word, style of sci-fi. There's really no steam powered in this. We don't see any coal or any of that stuff. The main difference is they're using solar energy and moon powered. I don't know what that lunar energy. But it is a very basic level of sci-fi tech, which does partially fall under the steampunk style sci-fi. So, yeah, we don't see steam pumping up out of this little thing or whatever, but to me, I would consider it a very loose steampunk style sci-fi. The landscapes and the sets in this are phenomenal. It is filmed mostly in western United States, in the Utah, the old west style landscapes, but oh my goodness, the landscapes are phenomenal in this. And the sets are too. And yes, there's a lot of CGI and computer generated images and all of that in this film, but it's so well done that you're just like, oh, okay, green guy, all right, as opposed to that's a computer generated image. Like, it's done so well that to me it's hard to tell. And the interesting thing, at the time that it was written, it was a very loose, but still a commentary on the Civil War. And a quote is said, "War is a shameful thing." While from 1912 to 2012, it is still a social commentary on war and all of that. And it's so well done. And it's not like in your face, like, what is it for? It's more of here's this concept, and it's tastefully done. It's not in your face, but it's not hidden behind some minor story. So, all right. So the main reason why this film flopped so much was because of the marketing. So, although this film was a financial flop for Disney, and this is my opinion right here, I think they should do the sequel they had planned. So the original stories, if I remember right, it's um, three stories. It's the Princess of Mars, John Carter of Mars, and I don't remember. But even if they can't, even if Disney went back to the estate, who still owns the rights to the film, the rights of the novels that the films are based on, have since reverted back to the Edgar Rice Burroughs estate, which is still game to make the books or turn the books into a successful movie franchise. So I think what Disney should do, because Disney has such a connection to this film as well as to the estate, Tarzan, that they should just turn around and make it into an animated series. Just do 3 animated films. Everybody, all of the personal reviews that you see of this film on IMDb is 6 stars or higher. That is rare for a film that is considered a flop. It is rare. And almost every single person comments, says, there should be a sequel. Where's our sequel? I want a sequel now. This needs to be made into a sequel or full trilogy or full franchise. So there are people who are asking for it. So I think that if Disney doesn't do a live action sequel to this film, they should just turn around and make animated version of all 3 novels. That way you can get a little bit more stuff in there that's not in the film. You're not going to be limited by what you can actually do sci-fi, effects, but you can get the story across. I think Disney should do that. So Disney, listen up. So, marketing was the biggest issue for this film here in the States, but it was the international market that saved them, even though it was still a big loss for Disney. Financially, the film is considered one of the largest box office losses in Disney history, even though the film performed stronger than expected outside the U.S. It contributed to Disney Studios' entertainment division reporting an $84 million loss in the first quarter of 2012. Such a large loss was attributed to issues with marketing, management changes at the studio, and a lack of merchandising normally associated with such a large budget film. As a result, any plans of the 2 sequels that were already in development prior to the film's release were scrapped. Again, go back. Make it animated. This film probably holds the record for the longest time in development hell. 79 years. Pre-production first started in 1931 when Robert Clampett, director of Looney Tunes, approached author Edgar Rice Burroughs to make an animated feature out of the first book in the series. Again, like what I just said. Make an animated feature out of the first book in the series, A Princess of Mars. Had plans gone through, John Carter could have become America's first animated feature beating Walt Disney's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs in 1937. It finally left development hell in January 2010. 2010. From 1931 to 2010. That is a long time. So the first story, which is what this film is based off of, A Princess of Mars, was originally published as Under the Moons of Mars by Norman Bean. That was Burroughs' pseudonym. In the All Story, which was a 6 pulp magazine issues from February to July of 1912, Burroughs was originally afraid that he might be ridiculed for writing such a tale, so he decided to use a pen name. The pseudonym was supposed to be a pun, normal being, as in, I'm a normal human being, or normal being, to reassure people. But the man who typeset the text thought it was a mistake, so he changed it to Norman. However, Burroughs' fears turned out to be unfounded. The story and its sequels, collectively known as the Barsoom series, were almost as popular and arguably more influential as those of his most famous creation, Tarzan. The first John Carter story by Edgar Rice Burroughs, like as I just said, debuted in a magazine in 1912. This movie debuted in 2012, 100 years after it was written. The interesting thing, John Burroughs was in Utah when he wrote this book, or at least the first story. This film was filmed in a good chunk of Utah before it was released in 2012. So not only is this film the 100-year film debut of this character, it is also the 100-year celebration of the story being written in the same state that it was filmed in. I find that so intriguing. And there's a point where our main character John Carter is given a plot device to where he can understand the aliens. Before that, he could not understand them. And at the time of this being written in 1912, of the research I've done, this is the very first sci-fi story that the main character is given something to help them understand the language of an alien or a creature or whatever. Because if you look at it and you go back in the late 40s, early 50s, through to the 70s, and even almost to now, now it's a little bit more noticeable that it's done different, but up until basically Star Trek, from the late 40s to the 60s, late 60s, yeah, for someone to understand someone, for me to understand an alien, it was just understood that we understood the same conversation. But this story, written in 1912, as far as I can tell, is the very first story that gives our main character a plot device, whether it's a device or a solution or, as in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, a fish. A babblefish, to help the main character understand an alien language. So it was honestly ahead of its time, because there's just now TV and movie franchises that are like, okay, how does this character, who is a humanoid, understand this green creature over here? Well, let's give him this device. Okay. Boom. It solves our issue. 1912. I love this movie. It is a lot of fun. Um, it is not one of those where, I watched it in theaters, went, eh, and then later down the road went, oh, this is fantastic. It's not how it is. This is one of those films that I saw in theaters, went, all right, this is fantastic. Let's see the second one and the third one, and I'll go get the books. Never went and got the books, but it's on my list. It is a fun film because you've got aliens, you've got sci-fi, you've got fantasy, you've got sword fighting, you've got explosions. It is a lot of fun. So, check it out. It is on Disney Plus. So it is there. Probably find it in a couple other places. Check it out for yourself. If anything, you don't like it. Oh well. All right. Take a chance and explore something new or old, but new to you. Adventure is out there. Go find it. I'll see y'all next time.